So, Callum, based upon what we've been talking, I would like to start out with telling you that um, Western Buddhism is not exactly what the Buddha taught. That I kind of stay with what the Buddha taught in the sense of early scriptures or early suttas, and mostly the Majjhima Nikaya, which was done within a year after his death. And that the important point is that before the Buddha's awakening or enlightenment, he was trying all kinds of things. And those all kinds of things seem to have been put into a great big bag and called Western Buddhism. The Buddhism, it looks like that they would rather, how to say it, do what the Buddha did rather than listen to what the Buddha says. Okay, do as I say, not do as I do. And this is where a lot of confusion comes in, is because everyone in Western Buddhism is repeating all the mistakes that the Buddha went through. And he had the very, very best teachers. And he found all of the stuff with the jhanas and metta practice and all of that kind of stuff was not what he was looking for. That most specifically, the statement is he's looking for dukkha nirodha, to come out of our dissatisfactions. And yet Western Buddhism seems to be all about attainments, which means you're trying to get something that you don't have, right? Which means then that you're dissatisfied because you don't have the attainments that you've heard about. Okay? That in fact you could say that what basically Western Buddhism is a smorgasbord of, it's a business model of selling all kinds of things, including magic, beliefs, and anything to get you to want it. That people who don't have much available to them tend to be okay with the way that they are. But when they start hearing about Lamborghinis and Ferraris, they begin to want one. When they hear about high salaries, they begin to want that too. When they are advertised beautiful, gorgeous girls in scantily clad bikinis and whatnot, we want that too. Whatever we're exposed to that we don't have, we tend to want that. And that's what happened with Western Buddhism is that anything and everything that they heard about that came out of Asia, basically, plus a whole lot of Western mysticism, has all been thrown into a great big bag. And everyone that's practicing out of that bag winds up not doing what the Buddha taught. They wind up going after getting something that they don't have. And so basically what they're doing with that is practicing dissatisfaction. Western meditation is actually the art and the practice of increasing one's dissatisfaction, not eliminating it.
Right.
Real teaching of the Buddha is to come out of our dissatisfactions and become satisfied with the way things are, without the attainments, without the higher jhanas, without, let us say, magical powers dressed in bikinis, and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is where we start, is that we come out of dukkha, which means dissatisfaction, into a state of being satisfied. And this is what we need to practice. This is the basis of the Four Noble Truths, is to be able to see what dukkha is, recognizing that we made it up. That we want things, we want to get rid of things, we want to change things, and we do that ignorantly, rather than just seeing that I want something and then say, oh, well, I'm okay without it. This is the real teaching of the Buddha, is to recognize basically how the mind works. And the mind works on a greed model. We want things. We want attainments. And most of the books that you'll find that are written by Westerners fit in with that greed model of wanting something that we don't have, rather than learning to be satisfied with the way things are. Now, what that means, in fact, is that we can live in sensory awareness of reality, that we can take in input of reality and live with reality. But the way that we're trained from childhood in Western culture is to make something out of reality, to improve it, to fix it, to make it better. This is the whole way of the mind state is that whatever reality is now is not good enough. We're going to have to make it better. And that they were doing that in the time of the Buddha. There was a whole lot of ripoffs. The Brahmins were making huge amount of money. In fact, at one point in time, more than one point in time, they had accumulated almost all of the land. How did they get a hold of the land? Is by telling old people, oh, if you give your land to your children, you're going to go to hell. But if you give the land to us, we'll pray, we'll say some incantations, some chanting, and give you a right beautiful funeral, and then you'll be released from suffering. Okay? That was the basic story, and that's how the land got into the Brahmins' hands, so that they owned everything. This is where the whole issue of the caste system in India got started, was because people were promised a good afterlife if they will forsake their family to give it to the Brahmins. This has given rise to the burning hats that you'll find at Varanasi, where they've got a whole area that's actually built up in stone construction, to where there's a whole lot of places for dead bodies to be burned, while at the same time there are ships that come laden down with wood, where they've chopped down the forest so that they can burn these bodies. But the entrance into getting in those burning hats is that you got to give everything to the Brahmins to do the ceremonies. All right. So this now becomes the model for Western Buddhism, is that you've got to pay for retreats. You got to pay for books. You got to go do all of this stuff so that you can attain something, rather than being satisfied with the way things are. And so we make a bunch of stuff up. This is called perception, and we wind up with concepts, not real, but we made it up. And so you read these books about made up stuff, and then you start dreaming and thinking about and making it up and saying, oh, I want that too. And then we'll go start to practice wanting something that we don't have, instead of being willing to see things the way that they are. So this is the whole point about the Four Noble Truths, is to see that we do that we make stuff up, delusional things that give us greed and give us wanting to get differently. That in fact, you've probably heard of the second noble truth is based upon moha, lobha, dosa, or greed, ill will, and delusion. Now, basically, greed and ill will are the same thing. It's just a matter of the perspective. For instance, if you want something, then that means you're dissatisfied with being without it. Or if you have to put up with something, that you don't like, that you have ill will for it, that means that you want to get rid of it. But wanting things and wanting to get rid of things is basically the delusion that we're in of thinking that we'll be better off if we can change something about ourselves or change the outside environment, build new buildings or get magical powers or whatever like that. Here's a really interesting point, and that is, why would anybody want to have mystical, magical powers? To show off? To control other people? What would be the reason why people want magical powers?
The novelty.
Pardon?
Maybe the novelty.
Well, that means that you're wanting to show off, right? They're wanting to show how wonderful they are, which means then is that they feel inadequate inside, that they don't feel powerful. So people who want magical powers are actually the people who are invested in themselves and everyone else being a victim, and that the magical powers take them out of the victimhood. But you've probably seen enough movies and heard enough stories that when people get real power, magical or otherwise, spiritual power or whatever, they almost always abuse it in the sense of harming people. But real strength means that you can avoid the conflict, to where having power, the victim has power, means that he wants to show everybody else that he's not a victim, that he's a winner, to where in fact all he's really doing is showing magical powers being wielded by someone who feels in himself inadequate. How can we make that change? The answer is that we have to make sure that when we see that we're wanting something, is to say, aha, I don't really need that. That's just something that I want. Then I'm actually okay without it. This is the way that we start to practice then, is to be able to see that all of our desires, all of our wants, all of our doubts, all of our worries, all of our greed, all of our ill will is actually unwholesome, not worth having. And so what we need to do then is to change those kind of thoughts from unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts. And the wholesome thoughts would be, hey, everything is already okay. Things are good right there, like they are right now. If we start to practice that over and over and over again, pretty soon we begin to understand how importantly true that actually is. And then we begin to marvel of, wow, I actually have made it, because I am now comfortable and satisfied. To where someone who has, let us say, attained magical powers, he is always in danger of someone else having more magical powers than he does. In other words, he's going to be exposed as the victim that he feels that he actually is. But if you don't have the magical powers, but what you have inside is a strength of character, then you don't care whether those other guys have magical powers or not, because you know that you're already okay, that you don't have to wield magical powers or attainments or anything like that, that you're already okay. Now that took the Buddha quite a number of years to figure out. And we're very, very fortunate to have that lesson passed down for the past 2,500 years, but very, very few people actually understand it well enough to gain that kind of spiritual power, that real strength of being a winner inside. You've probably heard that the Buddha was referred to on a number of occasions, on many different occasions, as a lion or as a bull. Now, when we use the word bull, we're not talking about a male cow. We're talking about a bull elephant. Really strong, okay? The dude that's on top of the world. that in fact there were occasions where people in the time of the Buddha gained magical powers, but they weren't able to harm him in any way with those. Devadatta, in fact, got an elephant drunk one time and then beat the elephant and to charge the Buddha. But the Buddha was not afraid of a drunken elephant, and so he just stood there and let the elephant approach him, and then he was kind to the elephant because he wasn't afraid of him, and therefore the elephant didn't attack him like Devadatta wanted to have happen. Okay, so what we're really working for is a strength of character, a mind state to where you understand that whatever happens in reality, it's okay. Everything is good. There's no reason to try to want or gain anything. But that takes practice because the mind is already in the habit of spinning about what it wants and what it wants and what I can get and all of that. And we're not aware of that cycling through all of that stuff that we want. So the question is, how can we come to be satisfied? And the answer to that is the Eightfold Noble Path. Most specifically is to when we see those unwholesome thoughts, those hindrances that prevent us from feeling good, we can see those things and make a change. Oh, I don't really want or need magical spiritual powers. Oh, I don't really want or need these high jhana states. Oh, I don't really want or need to see the future. Oh, I don't really want or need to see rebirth and reincarnation before I die. If it's real, it'll be real enough when it's real. But right now, it's not real. It's just magical thinking. So how can we come out of that? The answer to that is to recognize that more than likely, whatever thought that we're having is probably unwholesome and can be improved. So this is the Eightfold Noble Path, is to recognize that dukkha is the dissatisfaction of wanting something that we don't have. Now, everybody eventually, let us say everybody who is lucky, will get old, get sick, and die, to where all the unlucky ones will meet an untimely death. They don't go through old age sickness. They just go into death, and they probably don't like it very much. But when somebody goes through old age and sickness, then maybe they're ready to go into death. And they can do even that happily. So this is the way that we're beginning to practice, is recognizing that whatever's happening right now is good enough. That when people go into a retreat or go into a group like that, they can just sit there and say, wow, I've got nothing to do and no place to go. Isn't that marvelous? I can, in fact, be contented and happy and serene and relaxed and comfortable right now. That's what the real teaching of the Buddha is. That whole issue of dukkha, dukkha nirodha, means to see our dissatisfactions and then come out of it immediately. But most people who are into especially Western meditation, Western Buddhism, they see that, oh, there's something I don't have, I'm dissatisfied, let me work to go get that. And then when I get it, I'll be satisfied. Guess what? That doesn't happen. When we practice dissatisfaction, thinking that we'll get what we want and then be satisfied, oh no, that dissatisfaction is a habit now, and we'll just want something else. So if I get a whole bag of green marbles, when I get that bag, after I wanted it, I'll start wanting a bag of yellow marbles. There's no end to the greed until we begin to see it as something that's not really valuable at all. And so we can stop being victims of not having a big bag of marbles and recognize I'm good without it. This is the correct practice, okay? And in the Eightfold Noble Path, it talks about being able to look. But in order to look, we have to remember to look. Remember that the kind of thoughts that I'm having can be changed. And then I can look to see what they are, and then I can make a change. So, right view, looking, investigating, over and over and over again. Keep looking, keep investigating, and then you'll begin to see how things are. We can make a change to that. You can change right along with it. As opposed to wanting things to be different, we can say, oh, wanting things to be different means that I'm dissatisfied. Let me allow things to be okay the way that they are. This is the three big points of to wake up, take a really good close look at what we're doing, and then make a change from that unwholesome thought into a wholesome thought. Wholesome thoughts like, wow, I'm glad I saw that. Wow, I really don't need that at all. I'm okay the way that I am. No place to go and nothing to do, and everything is okay. Everything's all right. So we begin to trust reality, to where we have been taught that whatever is happening right now is not good enough. We got to fix it. And the real fixing is to see things that are okay the way that they are without needing to be fixed. So really what we're talking about is a major change of attitude. That's what we're looking at, is the major change of attitude, that everything is okay right now. Everything is fine. This is in Sutta number 117. This is actually an exposition of the Eightfold Noble Path from a noble perspective, is to remember to take a look and to make a change to improve. But what we're changing is our unwholesome thoughts into wholesome thoughts. And as we practice, we get better at it, so that we have one wholesome thought after another wholesome thought after another wholesome thought. If everything's okay, everything is fine, we don't need a thing. And pretty soon we begin to feel really good. And then we recognize it, we feel really good. Wow, everything is just fine. There actually becomes a wowness to it. Wow, everything really is okay. Wow, it's already okay the way it is. And so that quiet satisfaction then grows into a feeling of success. A lot of people will get, let us say, they want magical powers and they don't feel successful until they get them. But then if they get a little bit of magical power, they'll want more magical power, and they never really are able to rest in that feeling of success. And they want to keep testing it. They want to keep proving to themselves that they've got something. And all they're doing is, in fact, competing with other people to try to prove to themselves that they're already okay, because deep inside they don't believe it. That my success comes from some outside source, some magical power, rather than an internal feeling of success, of being able to manage my own mind. So this is actually the teaching of the Buddha. And this is where the second noble truth comes into, let us say, an expanded version of it, is the teaching of Paticca Samuppada, or dependent origination. Now, what you mean by dependent origination is everything that originates does so not spontaneously, but it does so out of causes, that one cause after another cause after another cause. And when you understand this sequence of events, you can recognize how the mind gets itself into a state of dissatisfaction. It's all founded in ignorance. And when we talk about ignorance in that way, we say, oh, well, that means I need to know more. And so we get into the habit of, oh, I don't know enough. I need to know more. More knowledge, more Buddhist books. Let me read a whole ton of books. Maybe I'll find what I'm looking for in there. And the answer is maybe I can stop looking for something because I already feel like I've got enough. There's actually no end to the amount of human knowledge. There's not only all of the known that somebody knows, but there's a huge amount of unknown that nobody knows, and we don't even know how much there is of that. But the question is, can you come to the point of being satisfied with what you do know, what you already have? This is the teaching of the Buddha, and we need to practice that. Practice seeing that I want something and then changing that from, oh, I'm okay without it. I'm already all right. That I can change that sense of need, change that sense of being a victim into I'm okay already. And that I'm okay already will then grow into a power, a real power, a strength of mind, where we can say that we're successful. What are we successful at? Not wanting much of anything. Wow, now that's success, isn't it? Of having already enough. This is profound. It's difficult to understand, and it requires a huge amount of practice over and over again because we have gotten into a really, really deep habit of wanting something. That in fact we do that to the kids by asking them questions. What's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? What do you want to be when you're grown up? Very, very few people will make the point that, oh, you've got enough now. Can you be satisfied with what you have? No, you got to have a favorite color. Whatever colors we have, they're not good enough. We want favorite colors. We want favorite foods. We can't just be satisfied with whatever food there is. We have to have our favorites. And so we wind up then getting into the habit of wanting and wanting and wanting and wanting more and more and more.
And is this kind of what you create your rites and rituals around?
Right. That in fact, most rituals are structured around asking for something, praying for something, wanting something to be different. Rather than the kind of rituals that capitalize upon everything is already okay, everything is fine. That in fact, the way that there is a Pali word called Silabata Paramasa that means attachments to rites, rules, and rituals, and people will get rules and rituals, especially ceremonies and things like that, is what people get attached to. But really, that's not a good translation. The good translation would be the issue of the rules, how things are supposed to be, because that creates dissatisfaction. Oh, God, grant us this boon. In other words, thank you, God, I got all that I need. I don't need anything. You can go take care of some other fool. So most rituals are based around wanting something. But then we recognize that, oh, I set standards for myself. Now that's probably a better word that we would have of rites, rules, rituals, and mostly standards of how things are supposed to be.
That's
Which is actually, pardon?
They can become quite suffocating. It's almost, you make a little prison for yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's the prison that we make. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa talks about the prison of life. What is that prison? The bars, each one of them is a various rule or the way things are supposed to be. And when you don't have very many rules, you have freedom.
Mm.
That in fact we could break it down to the point that there's actually only one rule that we need. Only one. What rule is that? Dukkha, dukkha nirodha. The entire teachings of the Buddha is all that we need is just one rule. Don't cause yourself harm and don't cause harm to others. Come out of your hurting and stop hurting other people. That's the only real rule that we need so that we can become friendly with the moment. Had a guy today talk about killing time. He's going to go to the retreat to kill time. Well, this present moment can be a friend. It doesn't have to be an enemy. When we talk about killing things, we normally kill things because we don't like the way that things are. So let's come out of our killing and come into the nurturing. Or those standards can also be called concepts or criticisms, and we're critical. You know, they advertise critical thinking as a marvelous thing. And I guess that they mean criticism or critical thinking is different than just accepting or believing whatever you're told. And I would assume that that's the real issue, is going along with whatever we're told. That's what we've gotten to. A lot of people think that, oh, my thoughts are my thoughts. My opinions are my opinions. Oh, no, you don't have an opinion. Any opinion that you can have, you probably got from somebody else. They told you that, and it sounded good to you, and now you believe it, and after you believe it, you think that it's yours. But in fact, it don't belong to you. So the Western mindset is left into two different categories. Either believe what you're told or be critical of what you're told. And the answer would be ignore what you're told and look at what's really going on. The day is shiny. It's a beautiful day. Everything is already okay right now. Let the future take care of itself. And guess what? If you practice well, then what your future is going to hold is everything's okay. Everything is fine. Not a worry in the world.
Yeah, it feels hard to let go of the need to control the future. It feels like, oh, there's real danger in that.
Well, the danger is seeing danger. And so we wind up having a mind full of danger, of all the dangerous things that we've got to manage. That in fact, almost all of the problems that we ever can conceive of don't actually ever happen.
Yeah, that Mark Twain quote or something, isn't it?
Yeah, 99% of all the problems of the world never actually happen. We made that stuff up instead of just enjoying things the way that they are in reality. So we've already gotten in the habit of either believing what we were told or being critical of things. Both of those are dukkha. And so whenever you're dwelling on what you've been told, say, wait a minute, I can check that out for myself. Let me investigate for myself. And one of the things then that we do is we come out of our critical thinking and begin to nurture ourselves, to nurture our environment. And what I mean by nurturing is everything is okay. Everything is fine. Not a problem in the world. And we keep practicing that way, and pretty soon, wow, this is great kind of feeling comes in. And if you've got that, wow, everything is just fine, everything is okay, that went really, really well, then we don't need magical powers. And like I said, magical powers are things that victims want to have. thinking that the magical power is going to make him feel like a champion, to where in fact, oh no, it's just more danger. He's in fact inviting real danger, showing off his magical power, and somebody else wants to show off theirs too. And the next thing you know, you're in a competition over who's got the most magical powers. Now we've got the stuff for a movie. Have you ever noticed, in fact, by movies, that almost all of the movies that come out of Hollywood are conflict-oriented?
Yeah.
In fact, people would say, oh, a happy movie doesn't make much sense. Let's give those kind of movies to children. Even love story has to be boy hates girl, girl hates boy, boy loves girl, girl hates boy, girl loves boy, boy hates girl. Finally, for a little while, they can tolerate each other, and by the end of that's the end of the movie. Because they'll start hating each other again. And then they've got a sequel. And so we learn a lot of disappointments. We learn a lot of critical thinking from movies and from entertainment. The present age actually has way too much entertainment. And you can have a whole lot more fun and peace and quiet and whatnot like that just by putting that cell phone or that TV, put it off, and say, wow, everything is okay right now. Everything is fine right now.
I think you said, isn't that the reason for the practice of the jhanas in the Buddha's day? Because they didn't really have much to do, so they just sat in the woods and felt good.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are natural states to go into once the mind is peaceful and quiet. But our minds are not peaceful and quiet. Why? Because we're too busy wanting something that we don't have, including jhanas. And so we'll go into dull states, and then we'll make stuff up, and then we'll start calling that dull state a jhana. And then we'll scream to the top of our lungs, I've got a jhana, I've got a jhana. And everybody around says, oh, I want one too. Oh, I want one. And very few people are just satisfied with the way they are. And this is the real teaching of the Buddha, is to come out of those unwholesome thoughts of wanting something into the state of mind where you feel safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied. There's actually a Pali word for that. It's called sukha. To become safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied. And you keep doing that over and over and over again, and pretty soon you begin to feel successful at doing that. That this is good enough. Wow, this really is good enough. And so this is the actual Eightfold Noble Path. So when we get that state of everything really is good enough, then we come out of all of our internal conflicts. This is what we would call a noble mind state, or where the mind is integrated. Now, a mind that's not integrated means that it's going to tell stories, it's going to lie, it's going to have doubts, it's going to be worried. All of that kind of stuff is an ordinary mind. But when you're in that state of everything is okay, everything is fine, the mind is noble, the mind is integrated, and this is what we call a samadhi mind. It's not concentrated in the sense of concentrating on code or reading something or studying something. It actually has the quality of everything is at peace, everything is okay.
Didn't you say 4 aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path?
I'm sorry, the dog is barking. Can you repeat that?
Say 4 aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path comprise the unification of mind.
Yes, the 4 parts is to remember, to look, and then make a change, to be satisfied. And then that satisfaction grows into that kind of wow state of success. And that's what integrates the mind. And when the mind is whole and integrated and noble, and you don't want anything, then you're unlikely to harm anybody to get it.
And that's the whole path.
And that's the path, right, is to be satisfied with what you've got. To be comfortable and secure in what you have. Can you do that? Yes, you can. You can do that, especially if you remember it and practice it. Do you think you can practice that?
Yeah, I can definitely practice it.
Okay. That way you don't need magical powers. You don't need to attain anything. But in fact, the real teaching of the Buddha is a dead loss, not attaining anything at all. In fact, what you wind up with is a whole bunch of nothing. And you're really, really pleased and happy with nothing at all. This is the teaching of sunyata, or sunyata. If everything is empty, no meaning, and that's okay. But Western Buddhism is about attaining things, getting something. But really, the real point is it's all a matter of losing. What are we losing? We're losing our defilements. We're losing our zits. We're losing our uncomfortableness. We're losing our dangers. We're losing all of our problems.
You're losing the self-view.
Yes, exactly. Because the self-view about danger is, I'm in danger. But when there's no danger, there's no I to be in danger. That's all there is to it. So be careful when you're reading these books that talk about attaining something, because that puts you in a state of want and a state of dissatisfaction with the way things are.
Mm.
So, Callum, you go practice that. The right book to read is the one between your ears. That's the one that needs to be looked at, to be read, to investigate. Is this thought wholesome? Or is this thought of satisfaction and comfort? So the next time you start thinking about those attainments, recognize it all. Wanting those attainments puts me in a state of discomfort. Puts us in a state of things are not satisfying. I'll get that thing and then I'll be satisfied, but oh no, you've already gotten to in such a state of being dissatisfied and wanting something to make you satisfied that even if you get what you think will make you satisfied, you'll be dissatisfied immediately after that.
Mm.
Even if you get a gold medal, it's not big enough. If you get an Emmy, you want 2 of them. It's not good enough to have 1 world championship. You got to go get another one. But when are you ever going to be satisfied with what you've got? That is what takes practice. This is what the practice is. This is why we sit alone and start looking at the mind and making a change. to come out of our dissatisfaction into a state of satisfaction. This is good enough. This is fine. This is enough. I have enough knowledge.
And is all dukkha a manifestation of one of the 5 hindrances?
Well, the 5 hindrances are just the opposite of that. Is worried about something, being restless, needing to go do something, needing to go someplace. Doubt about how do I practice? Guess what? You already have enough to practice. There's no reason to have doubts about it. All I have to do is just be satisfied. And then when you're satisfied, where's the doubts?
Right.
And it's good to be alert, to note that we become dissatisfied, because if we get sleepy or tired, then those hindrances, those old worries and doubts will just come back up. So we need to stay on our toes, basically. Just to be aware, note when we're dissatisfied, and then come back into a state of satisfaction.
And this is an every moment thing. This is not something you book a retreat for and go and sit in a hall.
Exactly. And a whole lot of people do retreats and they're unsatisfied. Oh, I don't have my entertainment. Many people, in fact, I would say by and large, everyone, when they're in the retreat, they want to check out early and go home. Instead of, oh, this is so nice. Not a care in the world, not a problem, everything is okay. So you go practice that. That way you don't need magical powers. You don't need to attain anything. You've already got enough.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, let's finish the call now.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Pardon?
Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, call me again and tell me how great you feel.
Okay, I will.
All right. We'll see you later, Callum.
Thanks. See you later.